Okay, so tonight I'm going to read a Max Lucado book, and we know that Max Lucado is an author who's tried to write books to help us focus on God and on his love for us, his compassion, his care. And so we read this book called The Oak Inside the Acorn to remind us that each of us was created by God with special abilities, and we're all a promise about something that we will be in the future. So we're going to read this book, The Oak Inside the Acorn. And we know that an acorn is a very small little seed that someday becomes a large tree. The acorn looked at the world. So I don't know if you can see it, but the acorn is right there. The acorn looked at the world around him. Green hills rolled their backs in the distance. Bright daisies bloomed below him. Above him, a family of puffy white clouds floated through the blue sky. "The world looks so big," the little acorn said to his mother. "I'm just glad to be right here with you." So since he's a seed for a tree, the oak tree is his mother. His mother was a tall, beautiful oak tree. "I'm glad too, my little acorn. It's good for you to be here with me now. But when your time comes to go into the world, you'll be fine. I'll be afraid." Mother Oak hugged little acorn in her strong branches. "Within you is a great oak, little acorn. Just be the tree God made you to be." The thought of letting go and leaving the safety of his mother's branches was scary to little acorn, so he tried not to think about it. But deep down inside, he knew the time was coming. One by one, his brothers and sisters had been letting go and saying goodbye. They had been afraid too, but their mother had assured them with the same words, "Within you is a great oak. Just be the tree God made you to be." Each time he heard this, little acorn would look at himself and say, "An oak? In me?" He was so small, it was hard for him to believe he could ever be a tree. So there's the acorn hanging on to the tree that is his mother. This time, the time to let go came sooner than little acorn wanted. It started with a bump. He was resting one summer afternoon, thankful for the coolness in the shadow of the leaves, when, thud! The tree shook. His mother's branches trembled, and little acorn began to swing back and forth. A farmer's pickup truck had accidentally backed into the tree trunk. So there's the truck. Here's little acorn falling down into the truck. Little acorn had swung before, stirred by the wind, bumped by climbing kids, and each time he'd always held on. But not this time. He tried. He pressed his thin stem into the branch as hard as he could. It didn't work. He was a heavier acorn than he used to be, and his stem began to pull away from the branch. "Uh-oh, Mom!" "It's okay, little acorn," Mother Oak assured him. "You can't hang on forever. It's time. You've got to let go." Down he fell, flipping over and over, softly slipping through the leaves until he bounced on something hard. He had landed in the back of the pickup truck. The truck vibrated and began to drive away. "It's okay, little acorn," his mother called out. "Within you is a great oak. Just be the tree God made you to be." Little acorn barely heard the last few words. The truck was already moving down the road, going somewhere. He just didn't know where. So I'm going to show that picture one. Notice there's something already in the truck. And there's a few leaves that fell down at the same time, too. As the truck bounced, so did the acorn. "Ouch," he said. "This is rough." "It gets better," he heard a voice say. Rolling over, little Acorn looked up at a young tree. "Who are you?" he asked. "I'm a new little orange tree on my way to be planted." "What do orange trees do?" asked the acorn. By now the road and the ride were smoother. "We grow oranges." "Oh," answered the acorn. He didn't know what an orange was, and was just about to ask when the truck slowed to a stop. "Wow!" exclaimed Orange Tree, who was tall enough to see out of the truck. "What is it?" asked the acorn. "Trees! Everywhere trees! It's an orange grove." Oh, let me show you. There's the orange tree, and there's the little acorn. "Okay, little orange tree, it's time for you to be planted," the farmer said as he lowered the truck tailgate and climbed into the back of the truck. The acorn rolled away just in time to avoid the farmer's big boot. He climbed into the truck, and there's the acorn. Here is a broom. The farmer took the tree and was gone for a long time. Little Acorn stared at the sky as it began to darken. He missed his mother, Oak, and her strong branches. This would be his first night away from her. The tailgate banged and the farmer jumped in. "A quick sweep," he said, "and I'm headed home." Little Acorn had never seen a broom. He barely saw this one before it sent him high in the air, and he landed in the soft dirt. You see, he's sweeping, and he's going to sweep the acorn out. "Wondered what happened to you." It was Orange Tree. Little Acorn was happy to hear a familiar voice. "Is this your new home?" "It sure is," Orange Tree said, "and it looks like it's your home too." Little Acorn had one more question. "Orange Tree, what do I do next?" Orange Tree's voice was sleepy. "Just settle in, little friend, and rest. God will make you grow." And so little Acorn did just that. He rested. That night, the next day, that week, the next month, there in the soft soil surrounded by orange trees, he sank deeper and deeper into the ground and slumbered. And the word slumber means to rest or sleep. He slept a long, long time. Oops, almost forgot to show you the picture. There's little acorn in the dirt, and there's the orange tree, and the little acorn is starting to sort of sink down into the dirt. When little acorn awoke, he didn't know where he was. He stretched upward, and when he did, he kept stretching higher and higher until he popped out of the dark dirt into the sunlight. "Well, look who's awake," announced Orange Tree. Little Acorn looked around and then up. "Hello, Orange Tree. Have I been sleeping long?" "Long enough to become a small tree." Little Acorn looked down at himself and said, "I've changed." His round shell was now a slender trunk. "You are growing up," Orange Tree said. "Now you are a little oak." Little Oak straightened himself and remembered his mother's words. "Within you is a great oak." Maybe she was right, he thought, and he stood a bit taller. There's the orange tree. The orange tree got bigger. And there's little acorn, but he's not a little acorn anymore. He's a little oak tree. Just like all of my students who are in first grade will one day be in middle school, and then in high school, and then you'll be teenagers, and then you'll be young adults. All kinds of good stuff coming. But even at his tallest, he was much smaller than the big orange trees. Their bushy branches grew greener and greener. Then one day Orange Tree called out to his friend, "Little Oak, look, my first orange." The big orange trees spoke up. "He'll have many more," they said. "So will I," announced Little Oak. The trees in the grove laughed. They didn't mean to hurt Little Oak's feelings, but they did. "You'll never have oranges," they said, chuckling. Little Oak straightened his branches and pushed as hard as he could. Ah! But no oranges popped out. Not that day, nor the next, nor the next. Here's Little Oak Tree, and here is his friend with one orange growing out. And there's a bunch of trees with a bunch of oranges. When the farmer came to collect the fruit, the oranges, Little Oak was worried. He didn't have any oranges. He had none to give. "Well, hello, Little Oak," the farmer greeted. "How did you get here?" The farmer walked away, and when he returned, he carried a big shovel. I wonder what's going to happen. "I know just the place for you." He lifted the new Little Oak Tree out of the ground. "Bye-bye, my friend," said Orange Tree. Here's Little Oak being picked up by the shovel. Oh, where's he going to go? The farmer didn't take Little Oak Tree too far away. He carried him out of the grove to his big white house. The farmer chose a spot in the backyard overlooking the orange grove. "Let's see how you do here," he said. Then he dug a deep hole and set Little Oak inside it. He placed dirt around Little Oak and pressed it tightly around the tree's roots. There's the farmer putting dirt around Little Oak Tree. Little Oak liked his new home. For the first time, he stood taller than almost everything around him. Now, another thing I'm pretty sure the farmer did was put a lot of water, because when you plant plants, you want to put a lot of water on them when they first move to a new space. Little Oak was stretching his roots into the dirt when he heard, "Hi, I'm Pink Petunia. Who are you?" Little Oak looked at the bright flower near the house. He started to answer, but Pink Petunia didn't give him time. "Rosie is next to the house." "Hi there," chirped Rosie. "Daisy is here too." "That's me," said a white and yellow flower. "Hello, little tree," Pink Petunia continued. "We are soft and smell sweet. What about you?" I'm going to show you the picture of the flowers that are speaking. These are the pink petunias. This is Rosie, and these are the daisies, okay? Little Oak didn't know how to answer. He knew he didn't have any oranges. "Do you grow flowers?" Pink Petunia asked. Little Oak never remembered seeing flowers like roses or petunias on his mother. But still, maybe oaks did grow flowers. "Maybe I could. Maybe that's what I'm made to do," he answered. You see, Little Oak Tree is trying to be like another kind of tree or another kind of plant. And that's not what his mother said, right? And that's definitely not what God planned for him to be. So he tried as hard as he could. Little Oak tried to grow flowers like his friends could grow. As the sun grew hotter, they unfolded into a rainbow of pinks, reds, and yellows. Little Oak, however, just grew taller. As the days grew longer, his roots grew deeper. Every day he tried to grow flowers. But did he? No, he never could, because God didn't make him to grow flowers. Pink Petunia could, so could Rosie, so could Daisy, but not Little Oak. And let me tell you something I know about acorns. Squirrels love acorns. Good food for squirrels. Finally, Little Oak decided to rest. His branches were tired and drooping. His leaves were dropping. Even the flowers were sleepy. "We're going to rest now, Little Oak," the flowers told him. And they did. The sky grew gray and days shortened, and the whole garden slept. While Little Oak slept, he dreamed. He dreamed of his days as a little acorn on his mother's branch. Deep in his sleep, he heard her voice. "Within you is a great oak. Just be the tree God made you to be." So, look at the picture now. it's a different season, and I bet you can all guess what season it is now. And there's little Oak, and you'll notice that his leaves have a different color, and they're actually beginning to fall off. When the sun warmed his branches, little Oak awoke. Only he wasn't so little anymore. He could see farther. He had grown taller and wider. The winds didn't bend him as much. His branches were as big as his trunk used to be. Little Oak was becoming a big oak. Many years passed, and each year he grew bigger and wider, wider and bigger, until everything in the farmer's yard looked up at him. So I'm going to ask you to pay close attention to what's in the yard. Here's the little Oak, and you see these, that's actually a doll. Some people thought it was a little girl, but it's a doll. So these look like the toys of a little girl, right? I want you to watch what happens. So here's a little toy car. Now let's look at the next page. What do you see now? It's a bike with no training wheels. And there's a car. And over here it's fall again. And there's a squirrel, probably enjoying the oak's acorns that fell on the ground. And then over here, it looks like maybe springtime, and there's a dog, a grown-up dog, and another squirrel. But I want you to pay attention too. You'll notice in the first picture that the shutters are green. They're green. Here, if you look carefully, they're blue. They used to be green, now they're blue. And there's a truck, a different truck, not that red one. It's a white truck. And now look at the shutters. They're a different color again. Now, Orange Tree and the flowers called him Big Oak. He spread his big branches and looked around. Orange Tree was taller too, but not as tall as Big Oak. Big Oak was taller than all of his friends. They were wide, but not as wide as Big Oak. He was the tallest. He was the widest. But he still wondered what he was supposed to do. He couldn't grow oranges or flowers. He just grew bigger. And he didn't know why. So here are a bunch of oranges from the orange grove. And here is Big Oak. He's not Little Oak anymore. He's bigger than the house. There's an oak tree near my house, and it's way bigger than the house behind it. Big Oak was just awakening from a long winter's nap. His leaves were tiny buds when a young farmer brought 2 ropes and tied them to one of his strong branches. Close by, a little girl watched. Rosie Rose was puzzled. "What's it for, Big Oak?" So I'm going to show you a picture and see if you can guess what it's for. Let's find out. "Can I do it, Daddy? Can I swing?" "Go ahead," urged the man, and the little girl with bright blue eyes and hair the color of Daisy's flowers sat in the swing. Big Oak felt the tug, but barely. He was strong, and the little girl was small. With her daddy's help, she swung forward, not too far, but farther the next day, and farther the next. There he is. Now remember, a lot of years have passed, so this might actually be a new family, which is why I was pointing out the shutters. By the time the sun was hot and the flowers were plentiful, she could swing alone, kicking her feet higher and higher until she could see the roof of her house. Then back she would swing, back until she seemed to look straight at the ground. Big Oak loved the sound of little girls' laughter, her footsteps running toward him, her squeals of delight as she swung higher and higher into the sky. Yes, Big Oak loved Little Girl. When she swung, he stood strong. When her daddy built her a tree house in Big Oak's branches, Big Oak gladly held it. When Little Girl stretched out on the grass to watch the clouds float, Big Oak shaded her. She played in his branches, climbed his trunk, rested in his shadow, and together they grew. Here's the little girl on her swing, going up, up, up. And there's her dad building her the tree house in Big Oak. And there she is, laying down under the tree. Now, if you look carefully, she looks a little bit more grown up than she does here, right? Each year, they both got taller. Each year, they both got stronger. When gray skies brought cloudy days, Big Oak slept and the swing hung silent and the playhouse stayed empty. When blue skies brought warm days, they laughed and played. Little Girl talked, and he listened. And at last Big Oak knew he had become the tree that God had made him to be. Little Girl. Story's not over yet. One day, Little Girl came to Big Oak with a little boy, though neither was too little. They sat on the branches and talked. Big Oak held them both, and when they carved their names on his trunk, he didn't mind. Little boy pushed the swing. Little Girl laughed, and Big Oak protected them from the sudden rain. In time, Little Girl didn't swing so much. When she climbed into the treehouse, she sat more and played less. Little Girl was becoming a big tree. Just like Little Oak became a big oak. Big Girl now stood as tall as Big Oak's lowest branch. One day, Rosy Rose said to Big Oak, "She's growing up, Big Oak. She'll soon leave." Big Oak didn't answer, but he understood. Remember when he was an acorn? What happened? Ooh, sorry, I didn't show you the picture. There she is. She's kind of grown up and sitting up in the tree. Big Girl spent many blue sky days sitting on the ground, leaning back against Big Oak's trunk and watching the clouds drift by. Big Oak knew Big Girl had a big question on her mind, because she said things like, "I don't know what I'm supposed to be," and "It's hard to let go," and "How can I know who I am?" Big Oak wanted to talk to Big Girl. He knew just what to say. He would say, "Within you is a great girl. Just be the person God made you to be." "Orange trees grow oranges," he would say. "Flower plants grow flowers. And oaks grow tall enough for swings and strong enough for swinging and big enough to hold little girls until they become big girls." He wanted to, but he couldn't say those words. So there she is sitting under the tree, asking herself all those big questions. One day, Big Girl was so sad. The little girl who used to giggle in Big Oak's shade just sat, silent tears flowing down her cheeks. "It's hard to let go," she said. Big Oak was listening, and he had an idea. He looked down his branch at a little acorn. "I have a special job for you," Big Oak said. Here's some acorns in the tree. There's Big Girl now. She's not the little girl anymore. So what kind of job can he give a little acorn to do? The next time the wind blew his branches, Big Oak let this branch shake more than the others. Look what happens. Okay. Now maybe you can't see it. Right there. Let me read on. Big Oak let his branch shake more than the others. The little acorn popped loose and landed in Big Girl's lap. Big Girl picked it up and started to toss it away, but stopped. She held the little acorn in her hand and stared at it. She turned and looked up at Big Oak. "Were you ever this small?" Answering her own question, she continued, "Of course you were. You grew into a great oak from a little acorn. All you did was become what God made you to be." She looked again at the acorn, then back at the tree. Her eyes brightened. "Do you suppose that's what God wants me to do?" Big Oak wanted to shout, "Yes!" But he didn't have to. Big Girl stood and announced, "Of course he does. Now it's time for me to let go and become the person that God made me to be." Big Girl smiled, placed the acorn in her pocket, and began walking away. But after a few steps, she stopped and turned. She looked at the swing, the tree house. She looked at Big Oak. She walked over to him and placed a hand on his trunk. Without a word, she said goodbye. And without a word, Big Oak said the same. Right. That is the end of the story. My hope is that it will inspire you to think about the big oak that's inside of you. And of course, you're not going to grow up into an oak tree because you're not an acorn. But you are going to grow into something really great and wonderful that God intended you to be. All right, that's the oak inside the acorn. Bye.